Well, frantic efforts are underway to rescue survivors. The earthquake struck, as we said, in the high Atlas Mountain shortly after 11 o'clock last night. The US Geological Survey said it was the strongest to hit the area in more than 100 years. To discuss, we're joined by the CEO of the Africa Muslims Agency in South Africa. That's Imraan Choonara. Mr. Choonara, thank you for being with us. So we are going to show some visuals that you've provided. We understand there is an Africa Muslims Agency team in Morocco. Just tell us about the conditions right now if they were wanting to help.
Well, first of all, Francis, thank you for having us on. And of course, the viewers, of course, have seen images already probably on social media, and you've shown it as well earlier as well, of what's going on in Morocco right now. And of course, it's a reminder almost of what happened in Turkey earlier this year, where over millions of people displaced, etc., etc. So right now we've got, because we partner with local international NGOs on the ground there in Morocco. But I want to emphasize one point that's really, really important. You said it earlier in your introduction that the earthquake struck high up in the Atlas Mountains. So people in remote areas are the most affected at the moment. Yes, of course, in Marrakesh and many other urban areas as well. Yes. But the toughest part is up in the high Atlas Mountains and difficult to reach areas. And because of the magnitude of the earthquake, many of the roads are devastated and there's debris everywhere, of course, which means trucks and rescue aid workers are finding it difficult to get to the actual people who are in need. Now, the first port of call for any situation like this, like was in Turkey earlier this year, is that rescue aid workers need first preference to get there before anyone else. And this is why up until now, the government of the Kingdom of Morocco and their military have restricted access for any local or international NGOs to the actual quake sites. And for good reason, as you can imagine, because it's dangerous, because the buildings, of course, are weak, etc., etc. And to prevent, like we saw in Turkey and Syria earlier this year, the aftershocks that cause sometimes more damage as well, they've restricted that. So many NGOs in South Africa and around the world are waiting standby. The United Nations, you guys mentioned it on your story a few minutes ago, is actually standing ready as well to assist. But right now, it's military and government and their institutions that are making sure that it's safe for NGOs to come in to provide the humanitarian aid that's going to be required. The one thing they did actually call for so far, the only assistance they've actually started accepting right now is in the form of blood donations. So the Marrakesh Health Department of Health, asked for blood donations right now because, of course, for blood transfusions, etc., for the victims that they find that are injured. You said earlier, on your report said earlier, over 1,000 people killed, more than 1,000 severely injured, and of course, hundreds of thousands right now will be displaced, if not millions, because obviously it's still unfolding.
That's what I was going to ask. Do you think we know the full extent even of the casualties? And it's just so sad to even look back, but a previous earthquake killed 12,000 people in 1960. So that was quite a while ago. But if you look at the magnitude, that was 5.8, according to the US Geological Survey. This current one is 6.8. So I guess it depends also where it hits. But it seems like, yeah, we don't know what really is happening out there.
Of course, and you probably watched it like I did with Turkey, and we were involved in the Turkey thing as well, and that earthquake. And you see, as the hours pass on, as the hours tick on, people's, you start losing hope, because of course there's hope now for finding people who are surviving. Because under the debris, under the rubble, this is the toughest 24, 48, 72 hours that go by, 96 hours that go by over the next few hours and the next couple of days are the toughest for everyone around the world, but most importantly for the people on the ground there, because of course they're fighting the clock. They're fighting the clock to find, and you've seen it in Turkey where they find babies and children, etc. And this happens, and of course, we pray that, of course, they get to every area that's affected because of the mountainous area, because of the remoteness of some of the areas. It's tough for aid workers to get there and rescue workers, more importantly. And right now, that's the fighting of the hope against time is the biggest challenge right now. Because you're right, we don't know the real extent yet. And we pray that it can be contained and that there's no aftershocks. Because if the minute that happens, it of course pushes the aid workers back all the time. If there are aftershocks of the earthquake, if there are tremors, etc., it delays it, and it makes it even worse for those possible survivors that are under rubble and debris at the moment. But the immediate need will be food, shelter. We saw this in Turkey as well. Right now, the immediate need that all NGOs who are waiting in Morocco to actually get involved and support are waiting with food, with shelter, with clothing, medication. This is the immediate need. You see, there's two types of need in humanitarian work, and we've been doing this for many years. Number one is that the immediate disaster relief. In a situation like an earthquake, you've got rescue aid workers and paramedics first preference. They have to make sure they can rescue as many people as possible. Then, within the next few days, what tends to happen is lack of food, shortage of food, shelter, medication. This becomes a reality for even the survivors or the people around, because not only the survivors of the actual earthquake that need that, but you must remember thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people get displaced. They may not be injured, but they displaced. They lost everything, which means they don't have anything whatsoever.
Mr. Choonara, we're hearing of people who are scared to go back home in case there are aftershocks in the cities. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, but we will follow your efforts. CEO of the African Muslims Agency, Imraan Choonara,